Cool. I'm going to stop my share so you can share.
Okay.
So maybe it'd be helpful if you just kind of want to just tell us a little bit about your project, and then we can go from there.
So my project, this is it. It's about basically what I'm trying to do with my project is be able to use Google API to be able to help students navigate back and forth to there's certain buildings on campus, and I've accomplished that. But I was trying to add a little more than just that function, which is Google APIs right here, if you can see it. I wanted to add like for the home page, I wanted to add a home about menu products, and I'm kind of stuck on how to do that. And also, I don't know how to use the backend and connect things so they function correctly, if that makes any sense.
For sure. So right now it's HTML, CSS, and maybe some JavaScript.
Right.
And you are looking to have some type of database, maybe of products, reviews, other things.
That would be pretty cool if I can do that, but I'm confused. I don't know if I'm supposed to use PHP or I'm looking for a full stack Java. I don't know necessarily that much more about it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options here, and like again, everyone feel free to chime in as you see fit. The language will kind of determine what back-end databases are available to you sometimes. Most things are written for all the major languages, JavaScript, PHP, Ruby, Python, all these things. So, again, it's more about your skill set. It sounds like you have some JavaScript chops, so maybe that would be the way to go, like something, you could hook up there. There's also a lot of like newer things or newish things that you could use that aren't necessarily, language dependent. Like what is that thing from Google? Like, why can't I never remember the name of it? Firestore, is that what it's called? There's a change its name. Like
did it change its name?
I don't know. I don't remember. They
Firebase.
Firebase. There we go.
Oh, I was gonna say that was it. Is that the old name or the new name? Yeah.
New name, I think. Yeah. So there's like Firebase, there's like FaunaDB, there's a whole bunch of these like database as a service kind of things. Amazon has a whole bunch of like database as a service products in AWS, Amazon Web Services. So like, again, it's like, your skill level, like, and also like what kind of tools are available for that specific backend system. So if you like make a very specific tech choice like AWS, they'll support mostly languages for things.
So is it possible I can do like AWS and PHP? Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is like, maybe,
it has
like
to be code based.
Yeah, I guess that's the other question is like, how much of it do you want to be, how much of this do you want to be like just a database and a front end, and how much of this do you need like some type of like
actually back up one step. So
Go ahead.
Are you trying to sell things? Are you trying to store data from the users, or you're trying to like build up a list of dynamic things you can present to users, but you're not like taking back users from the data from the users?
I guess the best thing to say is maybe I'm trying to build up I'm not trying to give or receive. I'm just trying to like make my things function. You know what I mean? Like I want to be able to click on certain like this, and I want to be able to click on certain functions and they take me to where I'm trying to go.
So I mean that you don't need a database for that necessarily, right? You can just code up different HTML pages. But if you want it to be dynamic, like you want to update the list of products without changing the HTML, then you would write like some JavaScript, let's say, that would pull data from Firebase or something else and build up the list of products dynamically. So that would be just kind of like a front end, purely front end, where you're consuming like a data that's basically public, right? Like it's not yeah, I think it sounds like first you probably just need to figure out how to write additional HTML pages so you have different actual pages on this. Looks like you just have one giant long page right now with anchors. Yeah, so like, I mean, in some ways it's really easy if you just write different, like a directory, create a directory named after the page you want, and you put another index.html file in that directory. Then like you make a menu slash index.html, and the menu link at the top goes to slash menu, it'll work.
Okay, I think I know what you're talking about.
Right, so I think, yeah, maybe you want to spend some time restructuring this like big page into those separate pages. And again, it depends how you built this. There might be, you know, tools for kind of doing something like a template on those different pages. So they'll look the same without you having to keep them in sync. I don't know, you know.
Like, so go ahead.
Well, I mean, there's different ways to do that, right? Like, so I've done that with, like, you could do that with something like PHP, like template out the pages, or some other tool, but it sounds like you're still kind of at a working kind of at the HTML and CSS level only.
Yeah, but I'm in JavaScript, but I'm trying to, I would like to branch off to possibly PHP, to connect the front end with the back end. I'm probably not going to be able to do all of it at once. That's fine, but I would like to get started and kind of make these functions do more than what they're doing.
Sure. So that's like, yeah. I mean, looks like you're just running this on your your desktop.
Yeah.
So I think,
I just realized there's like no web server, right?
Yeah. This is just a static HTML page. So
right.
I think, you know, step back then, do you have access to a web server? Do you know how to set up a web server running integrated with PHP? Or maybe there's a service you want to use. Someone else can name a service offhand. Like, I mean, so we do a lot of, like, people that do Drupal or WordPress might use like Platform or Pantheon, or, you know, another hosting company that sort of provides PHP integration. You know, I think there's a bunch of steps here, or is this stuff public at all yet, or is it just on your laptop?
This is just all my code to run my HTML file. This is what pops up.
Sure. So I would say even step back maybe one level and have you used Git and GitHub, for example?
Yeah, what about it? I didn't hear what you said. Can you say it again, please?
Have you used Git and like push things to GitHub?
I pushed it to GitHub, but the files are kind of unorganized at the moment. Like they're let me see. They kind of they are.
Yeah, I mean, organizing is easy though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say, so GitHub has this feature called GitHub Pages where you can publish a static HTML site.
Uh-huh.
So, the thing I would say kind of like as the next step, think about like figure out how to just organize the static HTML files such that you actually have like different actual paths maybe, and figure out how to publish it, on GitHub pages and make sure it works there. And then, that's kind of like a good next step. It sounds like you kind of want to jump 2 steps ahead do you already know PHP?
I know a little bit, not
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Could you just go up one directory in that listing?
What, I'm sorry, what do you want me to do?
Could you back that up one level to the top of that project in GitHub? We're looking in the images directory. Just want to look up one. Yeah. So what Peter was saying earlier is that you could actually add any other HTML file in here and you can link to it from the first one.
Yeah.
How so is that? I don't understand. Go to file.
So make
Add file.
if you made a directory there called menu or called sorry, what was one of the things you wanted to link to?
Home. Oh,
About, let's say about. So let's just say you make a directory called about.
so should I add file?
That might work.
Yeah, you can do it.
So sure. And then you put in directories here.
Yeah, you can do it. So do about
can,
and then
yeah.
/ index.html.
Yeah.
So type index.html.
Right. So this is
Yeah.
the same as your top level. Right. And then great. And then put some content of just basic HTML or just write hello as a text file.
Yeah, just say hello world or something.
Right.
Press enter.
Right. Yeah. So
Further
down there
down.
in the editor where you're editing the file. Right. Just write something there.
Yeah, just anything.
And then go ahead and scroll down and save it. Right. And yeah, commit new file. So now can you synchronize this to your local machine? Can you pull it on your machine? Do a git pull on your local?
Git pull.
So you have these files maybe checked out on your computer? Or did you push them? Do you remember doing that?
No, I didn't do that.
How'd they get up here? Did you just upload them?
Yeah, I uploaded them one by one.
Okay, so right. So now okay, great. So now they're here. So do you have the Git client locally?
No.
Okay.
Or the GitHub client's probably easier to work with at first.
Okay.
Should I
So
type it
yeah, I
in?
would say that's kind of the next step, right? The whole point of Git is you don't want to have to upload these files one by one. Rather, you want to just be able to quickly
Sync them.
synchronize them between GitHub and your computer.
So what should I do to do that?
Get a GitHub app. There's a GitHub app for Windows.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, just Google it.
Oh, you say Google it?
Yeah, you got to download it.
Okay.
And then you can log into it and you can like sync your your project down to your computer back and forth. So.
GitHub app?
Yeah, something like that. They'll have it download somewhere.
That's desktop.github.com.
There it is. The first result. No, further down. No, further down.
Here, I just shouted the link.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going down. Down.
Oh.
That one.
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing you want.
Okay.
Ultimately, as you get into this career, you're going to want to learn how to use Git directly But
Right.
right now, this is probably the way the best way for you to get started.
So can you tell me again what this will be beneficial for?
So this will allow you to sync the files back and forth from GitHub onto your computer.
So I was doing it the caveman way the whole time.
So, and when you do this, you can edit them in either place and it can sync them for you.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah. And then your work's all backed up, and there's also, like Peter was saying, there's interesting ways for you to publish it on GitHub if you choose to do that.
Right.
You can
And you're right.
publish a
The thing
website
about
on
Git
for
is
free.
it tracks all the history of all your changes, right? So if you
Yeah,
make a mistake, you need
can't
to go
lose
back
work.
to a previous version.
Yeah,
You need to see when something got changed. It's like all very easy.
Okay.
very good point.
And as you said,
Yeah.
Peter, the GitHub pages requires like a GH pages branch. And
That's kind of the
that's what actually
default. Yeah.
deploys this, right?
Yeah.
So you still need to set that up probably. And then,
Yeah.
this could just live on GitHub. It could just be like, whatever your username is .github.io. And it would, exist.
Yeah. And GitHub, also, I mean, you could deploy like production websites on GitHub if you want. They put the websites behind Fastly for you, and will even support SSL. So it's like it's
When you get
free feature.
involved, in backend coding for a website, you have to have a web server. So this is the next thing we gotta talk about.
Okay.
Even if you're using it on your own computer, you need a web server.
Okay.
The thing about some languages, particularly PHP is particularly web friendly as a backend language. You can, just by installing the PHP language on your computer, start a web server with it without installing like a full web server.
Okay. Should I authorize this? Stuff?
Your decision, but this is how the app works.
Yes, you have to, or it doesn't do anything useful.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Okay, see how it's easier repositories?
Yeah.
So now you can pick one of them on the right, and it'll sync it to your computer.
To grab, that one we were just looking at, right?
Oh, okay.
And you see the bottom
a
says
button appears on the
clone.
bottom. Yeah.
At the bottom right, clone. So git clone is basically making your first copy of that
Keep going
repository.
down.
Bottom
Oh,
right.
okay.
Yeah.
So this is where it's going to go on your computer here. Do you see in the local path? Just take note of that.
Okay.
All right.
You could
It'll want
change
to put
that
them
if you
all in
want.
there.
Yeah.
You can't use an existing directory though.
Okay.
Right, now that's set up locally. If you edit the files, you'll see change. They show up as changed on the one side on the left, and then you can press that commit button to save them up to GitHub.
So on your local, you should be able to load the top level index file, right?
Wherever this stuff went.
Yeah.
I'm confused. I'm sorry.
So hit
So this isn't an editor. This is just a thing that will sync the files back and forth. So you have to now go on your computer to the place where you downloaded them, the directory that you
middle
selected.
section there says show and explorer. That'll tell you where it is.
Oh, show and explorer. There you go.
There you go. Good call. So there they are.
And so open up the index page, right?
Familiar?
Right.
There you go.
And now if you go to /about
Yeah, just go to /about.
Take off
instead
the
of
index.html.
you should have a file there that says hello. Or an error
In the
message.
URL. Yeah, in the URL. No, just in the browser.
Yep, back in the web browser. Back in the web browser.
Go to back. So that page you were just on, wherever that went.
Oh, the index page.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
So where it says index.html in the URL, just change that to about. Right at the end of the URL.
I can't see it because of no, this,
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh,
that's
So-
a Zoom problem.
yeah.
there is a way to hide the controls in Zoom.
You can push them down to the bottom or something too. Or in the top.
Yeah.
It's a
yeah.
constant problem when you share a screen.
I know. Type in what? I'm sorry.
Just
Well, no,
hit
pro tip,
reload.
reload the page. Yeah,
Yeah,
reload
reload
the
the
page.
page. You lost everything.
Or-
Hit
Or
the
press
reload
escape.
button. Yeah.
Either one will work.
There you go.
Yeah.
And just that last part of it where it says index.html, replace it with about.
And you
Not
don't
Just
need the
about
HTML.
no
HTML.
.html.
No dot.
No dot.
Yeah. This will work though because there's no web server.
Are you sure?
Yep. Quite.
Okay,
Hit
well,
enter.
let's see. Hit enter, let's see what happens.
Enter, yeah.
Press enter.
Yeah.
And it will say not found. So yeah.
Well, the file's there, so now
2.8.
you can click the file.
Okay. On a web server, you would have got that page. So if you click on see the index HTML there, that will work now.
Really? Is it possible that you guys can, whoever's recording this, can send this to me in an email so I can have it too?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
So I think, like what Peter and Chris are really like getting at is like some fundamental web things, right? Like, so like Git is best practice, like for anybody career minded, for
Yeah.
anybody who doesn't want to go insane.
Yeah.
Learning
so-
Git good enough is very important. And then just understanding like, at the early stages, like, how a web server works of serving up these HTML files or things like that is super helpful.
Okay. Can you do we have enough time? All right, I know we're not done with this, but maybe at the end, can you show me how to take a file from Git? Because it was one folder that one guy I was following that I was liking. I was trying to clone it, but I was doing it through the website Git, the way that I was doing it before. But is it possible? Is it quick? Can we do that real quick?
Sure, maybe we'll save that for the end, if that's all right.
Okay.
We'll just
Okay,
see if
that's fine.
there's any other questions. There's definitely a couple other things here to
Right.
jump into.
Okay.
All right, so we'll go ahead and Leor.
We lose you, Sean? Or were you trying to hand it to?
You can't hear me. Sorry. And like, am I supposed to be muted or not at this point? So let's switch to Leora's question since she's on.
Okay.
So this is Leora's question. I parsed it down into its essence as best I
Yeah,
could.
no, it was something I was working on this afternoon, and you were saying, "Oh, do anybody have a question?" I'm like, "Oh, well, might as well ask in the group."
Leora, you're always good for a question. I totally appreciate it.
May I introduce what this question means to people that have no idea?
Yeah,
on
because
this call?
people may not know what Composer is even.
Yes. Okay. So so the question is how to update paid themes plugins via Composer. So let me just like unpack that a little bit for the people that certainly don't know what Composer is, maybe what paid means in this case. So different languages have package managers and dependency managers. Okay. So, well, and there's a bunch of them out there, but the one for the PHP language that everyone uses is called Composer. And so when you're doing a project for web or for anything else, you specify in a file the dependencies you need. So these are libraries and other things you're going to use in your project. And then you type some commands and Composer will download them for you and integrate them into your project for your use. Okay. Everyone got that? Yeah. So the question here, so Composer, like many of these, by default, use a public repository of open source code to, which are the things that you can download, okay? And most of these also allow you to specify private ones too. So if you work at a large company or something, there might be a private repository that you can also sort of point this thing to to get proprietary code from your company. So the question here is, what if you bought some code from someone, like on an online store, and would like to, I guess, download that with this package manager? And I'm going to give you the only answer I can imagine, Leora, which is, does the people you bought it from provide you the address of a Composer repository to use?
Okay, so in this particular case, this site is brand new to me. So like, oh, I look in it and I see, they bought some Drupal theme off of, what are the theme market? What are those
Yeah,
$49? It's the $49 theme that they bought somewhere. Okay. Then I realized, oh, like I do sites with advanced custom fields, right? And you have to prove that you have an account in order to get so I thought of that as a different example, but I'm really trying to answer the question of what is it that they would have given me that would have allowed me to, from this $49 theme, like, do I have to tell the MTA, well, we got to go buy the $49 theme because somebody gave you a site and they didn't tell you how to update the theme.
All right, so can the MTA honest legitimately not afford $49?
No, they probably, no, it's just, everything's a rigmarole. It's just,
well, so Leora, why do you need to pay for the theme at all?
Well, they probably bought it already. I really, this is my first time looking at the site. I mean, that's not true. It's my second time.
But I mean, at
I
this
actually
point,
haven't seen the site. The site is like for internal use only, and I'm not allowed to look at it yet.
you could just see the code.
I've been given the code.
Right. Okay.
I don't even have a database yet.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, you have the code of the theme. Do you actually need the origin of the theme to update it, or do you?
No, I
you
mean,
just need to update it
I guess
yourself.
you could just not update it.
Yeah, or you can make changes to it yourself if you need to, right?
Right. So I mean, I could just leave it out of Composer.
You
Well,
should check it
or
in,
you
so
should
check it
do.
into.
But I couldn't even figure out how to check it in because I don't know how to, like, it doesn't accept Drupal / Gavias, whatever the name of the theme was.
Well, so does this site is in a Git repo? Or no?
I mean, it's not on Git, but it's on Acquia.
Well, you have to be on Git to deploy to Acquia, right?
Right. So yeah, so I'm using Git. I
So
have a branch where I'm somehow it's getting updated without using Composer. So
Well, I mean, but it's not getting updated, right? So it's just in Git. It's as if you wrote a custom theme at this point. Right. So unless you think the theme developers have some kind of valuable update to give you,
right,
it probably doesn't matter. And I would just update it as you need and commit those changes to Git and deploy them.
Right.
But yeah, I think Chris's point is, like, it's possible that there are sufficiently, competent developers that they would provide you some kind of Composer repository to pull from, which might just be essentially a Git URL. Like, Composer can use a Git URL. That's what we use internally for, like, our custom modules. But then they would have to have given you some kind of authentication to access it, some kind of access.
That's
secret URL or something.
So I guess this isn't that common.
No, I think for these paid ones, they're generally, probably kind of garbage, and so
You pretty much download it, and then sometimes you can download it again if they have an update.
That's interesting because WordPress has a lot of paid plugins, paid themes, but not that many people use Composer with WordPress yet.
Yeah. Well, and WordPress, I mean, maybe Sean or someone else can comment. I mean, WordPress has the sort of auto update feature. I don't know if you get automatic updates for, like, a paid plugin in WordPress.
For sure it can. Yeah. I mean, Composer
Oh,
and
yeah,
WordPress
definitely.
are not a standard thing, but there's like some kind of Composer there is some composery WordPress thing that's used out there. I can't remember, Bricks or something like that. I can't
Yeah.
remember what it is.
Now that I think of it, when I remember reading about Composer in WordPress, they said generally people don't use it for the entire project. They use it for parts.
Yeah, so I would, yeah, I would guess, but so Sean, like a paid plugin would potentially have automatic updates or no in WordPress?
Yeah, like advanced custom fields, basically you give them a license key that they provide to you.
Okay.
Which gets stored in your site, and then it auto updates.
Right, so it's
Right.
kind of like what I said you would have to have for Composer, which is you'd have to have a license key or a password or something. In order to, and then they would let you pull it from their, whatever their Composer source is, which might just be Git. That's interesting with the license key. So somehow the WordPress update system is able to like pass a license key or something through.
Yeah, I don't know how fancy it is. I think it's just stored in your database, and your database basically allows when it makes that request, it passes that along to authenticate you.
Or they have keys or something that you have to
Yeah,
put in.
there's
Long
something.
string for
The code is open source, but you know, there's like
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of things in WordPress, there's the free version and the paid version, right? And so like the difference between the free and the paid is a bunch of features which are basically gatekept behind you paying money and having that license key, right? Because like even like Sketch or something else, like if software wise, right? Like Sketch, you can pay them $99 a year, you get a license key. If you don't renew it, you can still use the program, but you don't get any updates, right? Like so, like advanced custom fields, it's a very similar model of a you know, software kind of product.
Why don't you just go into the PHP code and hack out the requirement for the license? Or is that?
Well, you
considered
still would
bad
need to
form?
authenticate the, like, you would still get rejected because you wouldn't be able to authenticate against the place where the code gets updated from.
Right, you wouldn't be able to get an update of the code, but yeah.
Right, yeah. I mean, but it won't stop working after a year. Like, once you buy advanced and custom fields, like, it works as long as you pay for it. But if you stop paying for it, it still works. You just don't get any more features. You know what I mean? Like, you get stuck on a version.
Yeah.
So it depends. Envato is never going to give you Composer. Is never going to give you GitHub. It's going to tell you. It's going to send you an email and tell you to go download it, I think. Or a Theme Forest. Envato is like the bigger parent of the Theme Forest.
So yeah, I would say in general, yeah, Lou, I don't feel like. I mean, you could definitely integrate Composer with something paid, but I don't think that's. Yeah, I would think that's very uncommon if
Yeah, it
even
sounds like I
exists.
could just leave it as is and
Yeah, I would just leave it as is
Right.
and make
yeah,
the changes you need to change and. You know. It'll be in the Git repository for the site, and that's all you need.
right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, like Peter alluded to, like for CVCRM sites, like a lot of the time I have a Git URL, right? So like if you have some place where you can get a zip file, like you could in theory just when they send you that email, copy the link they give you, and then just put that in your Composer file and run Composer update, and it would download that and put it in the right spot. You know what I mean? Like, so if you really wanted to make it be Composer, like, and there wasn't some other thing that needed to happen, like besides you downloaded a zip file from someplace, you know, that in theory would work too.
Yeah, I guess the concern there, especially is like, you might want to have a copy of it committed somewhere in case they, it goes away.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking it looks like it might have some kind of builder in it. So
Oh no,
yeah,
run away.
well, whatever.
Seen that, hated it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a
When you-
limited number of people that actually use this site. It's not even a public site.
$29 to solve all of your problems and give you lots of headaches.
Yeah. I don't know how much they paid the developer, whoever did it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it might be one of those things where like it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I see. For now, we'll just leave it as is. It's the least problem. Okay. Thank
When
you.
you say there's no builder in it, what do you mean?
There is a builder or there is not a builder, you said?
Right, what is
Oh,
it?
it just has these, I'm just guessing. It has these, the theme has various modules that come with it that are in there also. And I'm guessing that they're builders that work with the theme.
Oh, okay.
I'm just not a big fan of builders. You know, I like when I work in WordPress, I like to work with Classic. So, and when I do Drupal, I like to be able to use twig files and manipulate things that way. Use whatever admin tools exist.
Yeah, I've seen several things, and it's like generally like a ridiculous amount of overhead for what it is. You know,
I remember trying to, what was the name of that theme? There was some WordPress theme, and I remember trying to change it, and it had in the CSS all this like dancing, like everything would like, it made me dizzy, but whatever. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, like, okay, you know, it's fine and it'll get you off the ground, but like at some point, like getting away from one of these things is probably better suited. And, you know, depending on what version of Drupal it is, like there's probably a better community supported solution,
Right. I mean, it's
you know,
not.
than one guy who made it, you know.
This is a definitely sub-site. This is not our
Yeah.
main site. Everything is done with twig and
Yep.
Oh, okay.
custom code and stuff like that. So this is just some small site that they handed to me, and
Mhm.
I guess it's very
So-
important to some people. To like 9 people, it's very important.
To some of the new people here to follow up on the last one too, I put a couple of links in the chat that I feel very strongly if you're going to get involved in web development, you're going to be confused a lot if you don't understand hypertext transfer protocol. It's very simple to understand actually, and you should probably have a look at that. And then also MDN, MDN is a simple protocol, and then MDN also has, you know, like a kind of basics page for branching out to learn about the essentials of web development. So yeah. Yeah, for example, getting back to the HTTP thing, I just want to look at that, and then click on the overview of HTTP. It's like the first thing of the tutorials. Yeah, so this like summarizes how web pages are transferred between web browsers and how web browsers post information back to them and how actually simple it is. And it's not a long read, and it's like rather important to understand it, or nothing makes sense. And once you understand the stuff, everything makes sense. So well worth learning. You know, we've hired engineers that were like more generalists or just come out of school and hadn't done any web, and I make them learn this first before I let them touch anything. So.
Good deal. It's not magic. I think we had let's continue on with folks that are on the call tonight, and then we can go to that Web3 thing at the end, because that seems like a hot debate anyway. Miriam, you mentioned that you were hating on CSS, so maybe do you want to give us like a high level, like what's your pain point, and then, you know, maybe we can point you in the direction of some resources or some things like that.
Me?
Miriam?
I'm here. I thought you were talking about me because I was struggling with CSS too.
Oh, did you say that? I'm sorry. I thought it was Miriam. My bad. My man.
It's
Josie.
just,
It was you.
yeah.
Maybe it was everybody. Everybody, you know, it's the CSS is hard.
Oh, I hate CSS too.
We know.
Oh
Peter,
my
we know.
God. Like, it's not even funny. But I don't know. I just started CSS like a week ago. This is my second week on CSS and HTML, but super difficult. I don't know. It's just like everything now I'm doing like responsive, something responsive. What is it called?
Responsive design.
Yeah, responsive design. So making my website usable across different different platforms. So yeah, I'm on that right now, which is not difficult, but it was that first week with CSS, I wanted to throw myself off of a bridge.
Oh no. Well,
Like
that's
I'm
not
so
good.
sorry. Like I know I shouldn't probably say that, but
Well,
Where's the
ready
Peter
to-
Griffin gif?
I
Yeah.
was I was ready to just
That's CSS.
like drop out of my coding boot camp because
Well, that's
but
not
then
good.
I just got to it. I had to I'm learning layouts. I feel like I'm comfortable with layouts now with floats. We're gonna learn Flexbox and grid soon. So hopefully that will, but and then next week I think I'm gonna get into JavaScript. But overall, I'm just really here to like really connect and learn how you guys do in your careers and stuff like that. But yeah, I just want to complain about CSS for a minute.
Yeah, so Google runs a site called web.dev. So they have a
Mhm.
learn CSS track, which is super helpful. Like MDN and web.dev are competitors to some degree in some weird way, although they're both free resources. So this like kind of gives you the whole idea. Because the thing you're probably running into is, my guess was the cascade, like which a lot of people then throw up their hand and go like, I told it to be red and it's still blue and I'm freaking out, right? And that's a lot of the specificity, all that kind of stuff. And the fact that like right now you're at a point in CSS where CSS is gonna like or is maturing really fast, or getting new features. And so you're at a really good time for CSS because like things that were really hard back in the day are getting a lot easier. Like you are going to be able to be like, this CSS only applies to like this little section of the page and nothing's going to leak in and nothing's going to leak out. And, you won't have to fight the cascade as much because of that. And like things like Flexbox and grid, especially grid and subgrid, make doing fancier layouts, better layouts a lot easier. So like, you got to kind of struggle through it, but there's like, some good things on the horizon too. Like when Safari lands, the new version of Safari is going to have like all these new features, like it has pseudo element and where and some other fancy new tools that'll make making websites a lot easier.
So can I back up? Because
Sure.
I hate CSS and the only way I can make any progress with it is by opening up the developer tools and like inspecting the elements and looking at the cascade. Is that something like in your bootcamp they were showing you how to do?
Yeah.
So
There,
I mean,
sorry. Yeah, we're at a point where they give us like screenshots of like newsletters or whatever it be, and they say to try to mimic it with like the basic knowledge of like what we know of like HTML and CSS. And just that alone is just yeah, but the first week with HTML was easy, but like because it's just listing on content, but CSS adding style is not fun at all.
Right, but as I said, have they like demonstrated the developer tools and how to inspect the elements and look at the CSS as being applied to an element?
Yeah, I know how to inspect and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, because I mean,
I'm glad they taught you that.
Right.
Yeah, the inspect tool. Oh my God, it's like.
Well, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I meet online that are incredibly frustrated and working in web for years and do not know about the developer tools.
Right. Yeah, just imagine what it was like when the browser didn't do this.
We didn't used to have this.
Right.
Google Chrome is like it's really good for web developers in general.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, to me, this is really great because, right, you can go in, I mean, and hopefully you played with the fact that you can actually make changes here or add a style to a specific element, right? And see what's going to happen before you write it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm at a point where I just need all the help I can get. I was like, oh my God, there's like a web development thing online on Meetup. I'm like, okay, maybe these people can like give me more insight, and I'm happy I came here because I'm learning new things.
When did we mention that, like, when people do this for a living, I don't always write all the CSS from scratch?
Yeah, that's just to say, in your projects, are you allowed to start from existing CSS framework?
We don't have any projects yet. We're just really still going
You said
over,
you're supposed to
like,
like replicate
yeah,
the
yeah.
appearance
I
of
guess
something, right?
yeah, I guess those are projects. Yeah.
Is the assignment that you have to write 100% of it from scratch?
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Okay,
We
well,
can. Yeah, we have to do that from scratch, which is frustrating, but
rather than you can't bring in like a CSS framework and use that.
no,
No, okay.
we can't do that. Not yet, at least. But right now,
It's
they
called
just
learning,
suggest-
Peter. They're not allowed to use frameworks. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at least for now, we're gonna be able to use them in the future. But for now, I think they want us to do everything manually. So then, like, you know, when we do the job interviews and stuff like that, we can do it
Sure.
ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's useful to know how to do this stuff, but yeah, in the real world, you're almost always going to start from something else.
Yeah.
Watch Sean digitally faint when I say this. We use Bootstrap for everything because we just gave up.
I don't think I use Bootstrap for most WordPress sites that I work on.
Okay, good.
Well, again, like you have to reach for a tool that works for your team, right? And you got to use a tool that makes sense to you, right? So some people will go,
Yeah.
not that.
Yeah.
Some people
I was
will
gonna
go
say.
and do hand bespoke hand code everything, right? They'll use Bootstrap. There's this thing called Tailwind CSS, which is like very micro classes with very special properties, but you get a very tiny bundle like of CSS that you actually ship, because it only uses what you tell it, right? So like it uses like these crazy things, right? It's like very atomic. So there's lots of ways of doing it, and some are more developer focused and some are more designer focused for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'll check them out. Yeah.
So Sean, Violet is able to use Bootstrap. Is that kind of the idea? You're billing her hours now.
One day.
Yeah. Yeah, see Valerie's putting comments in the chat, and yeah, I wouldn't be disheartened because like people come and join who are new to Bootstrap, and yeah, it's always extremely overwhelming when you start. So yeah, but I think Chris's links of like, and the idea of like, do try to make sure you have a handle on some of those basics of like how do websites work in a very basic way will help maybe avoid a lot of frustration. And yeah, I guess, I don't know if HTML and CSS is the right way to go on some of this stuff. Personally, like, I guess I came into web development through the PHP side. So it was kind of like, oh, I'm writing some code and it makes the website change, but I'm not necessarily spending a lot of time writing the HTML. So that's again, like you could go in and you could install WordPress and build a website and call yourself a WordPress developer, potentially without understanding how to write HTML and CSS. Is that fair to say, Sean? I mean,
yes,
like,
I would say so.
Yeah. So yeah, again, like, yeah, it sounds like these boot camps are putting you through, I mean, a good background learning experience. And yeah, something that would be really valuable because people do want things customized and they want it to look a very specific way. But also there's a lot of people that just jump in with a project and use WordPress or Drupal or something else to make a website and then figure out how to tweak it on top of what already runs. So
Yeah, definitely. I know there's templates and stuff like that I can use for shortcuts, but for now we just got to do everything.
Yep.
from scratch, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, and Chris pulled all his hair out writing HTML. That's how it happened, right, Chris?
Now with my Microsoft front page.
Well, and it's funny because we're kind of going back to that, right? Like, so like that link you shared for that decentralized thing, Chris, I think it was you, right? Like there was this like
Yeah.
Plezi, right? Which is essentially like, drag and drop website builder for, Web3, right? So like, there's always going to be a no code, low code solution, especially now. I think it's becoming more and more, prevalent. So if anybody has other questions, feel free to let us know. There was one other thing that had come in. It was talking about Web3, which may be way too premature for this group who's here with us tonight to have a conversation about. But if we want to talk about that, we can, or we can talk about other things. So what do you want to do? Let's choose your own meetup.
Yeah, particularly like the new people. I'm always interested to hear what you are wondering about. People that are new, not only new to this meeting, but like new to like web development.
Yeah, something that might be interesting. I don't know, Chris, if you have an example hanging around of like a super basic like Symfony web app, like what that code looks like. Because I think it might also.
Code?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just from the standpoint of like, hey, I'm starting out writing an HTML next page, but another way to sort of write a website in a sense, right, is to use a web framework like Symfony, and then that connects to a backend database, and there's a lot of other stuff going on. It sounds like people kind of might be interested in
if you
what
want to
they
look
think.
at some, if you want to look at some code, some
Yeah,
backend code.
like the most basic Symfony web app
Okay, that I have.
that you have. Or an example of a Symfony one, a simple one,
Yeah, let me this might take a second, and I have a some dogs climbing on me. Who are just like, okay, so yeah, let me a sec here.
Okay.
Give me a second here. I might disconnect a sec here.
Sure.
I'll
I
come
think
back.
we had a question we didn't quite answer about like how to make a copy of someone else's Git repo. I feel like that might have been.
Yeah, I think Jared was asking about that.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah. Did you have you seen the fork button on GitHub?
Yeah, I've actually downloaded it, but I don't know if I did it correctly.
So, well, there's a couple things, right? So one is that you can fork it, or you could directly download it. So forking it is making your own copy that you are then allowed to modify as much as you want, depending on the license, versus just downloading the original project where you could play with it locally or change it locally, but yeah, probably that person won't let you make changes back to their version.
So if I fork it, I can make changes to it.
Right. So if you
Is it
fork it,
okay?
then there's basically a copy in your GitHub account, and you can do that clone process, as we did with any kind of get client. So then you can edit the files locally if you want, and you can
Stop
synchronize it back and forth.
growling at me.
Is it okay if you show me how to do that real quick?
I don't know what kind of Git client you use, Sean.
I just use command line.
Yeah, I
I
usually
think
use
he's on
command line.
Windows.
You can kind of
Windows.
show it
He's on
off
Windows.
at least, right? Like we go to GitHub, you'll get the idea of basically like you're making a copy of somebody else's code. Like this is how you like would contribute to like an open source project too on GitHub. Like you would make a fork, make your change, and then you would make a pull request that basically says like, hey, here's something I fixed, like whether it's docs or there's like an error. And then you would say, basically request that code be merged back into the open source project.
So should we do a quick demo of that?
I can't
Please.
demo at the moment, but you can if you want.
I can.
I got my
uh,
demo already that you asked me to do.
All right,
so-
all right, let's see Chris's demo, because I want to see
All
that.
right. Okay, so I'll just show you some. All right, sharing screen now, right? Can you see this? All right. Everybody see this? I'm having no feedback.
Yes.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
see it.
Oh, okay. All right, so so everyone has a camera started. All right. So this is like an enterprise app that we have here that I'm actually trying to get rid of. So, but Peter wanted the simplest one possible. So that's what this is. So the design is using Bootstrap because we have no designer. So Bootstrap is a front-end framework so it's sort of like an all-in-one thing for making buttons and whatever this thing is, and generally look nice, So this has forms on it. So forms are things where you put information and then you post them to the server. Okay. And we have other like JavaScript features and things that do this. There are like choices here that are sourced from a database. When you save these things, let me log into this. When they save these things, can you not record this part, please? Sean, we code for the web or for other things. On top of the language that we're using, we'll also use what's called a framework. So we use a framework that's actually sort of popular in Europe for PHP called Symfony framework. It is not the most popular one in the United States for PHP. The most popular one in the United States is called Laravel for PHP. And if you learn Laravel, there are jobs. All right.
You have to be an artisan.
Laravel is actually built on a lot of Symfony technology, but it actually has a way cooler website, and it actually has some cooler features, honestly, built in. But anyway, Symfony is an extremely direct and effective web framework for making like high performance websites. They have good tutorials for getting used to it. It also has like it can also generate code too. So when at first you don't know how to use it, you can actually generate like essentially pages with it. You can generate tables in a database, and also the things to edit them with, and then you can kind of tweak it from there. All right. So here's already two. So we're already using Symfony framework. We're using Bootstrap for the design. Okay. Now I want to look at the code. So this is a IDE, integrated development environment. They're available for many languages. If you're just starting out, I highly recommend VS Code editor if you're not already using it. That's pretty much the way to go now. I don't know if Sean would nod when he says that, but so VS Code is this guy is the one to go with most of the time now. If you don't know, you can edit almost anything in this thing. Okay. All right. So I kind of don't know where to start here. So I'll start with my dependency file. So this is when Leora was saying earlier, I was talking earlier about this composer thing. This is a dependency file. So this is for PHP. This is the thing where I specify some details about the project, but also all the other stuff the project needs to run. So these are libraries that other people wrote. All right. So, like I need this thing called .env, I need this thing called flex. I need their form components so I can make web forms, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And so when I want to install what's in here, I type composer install. And if I don't already have the correct version, it'll download them or update them or whatever. Okay. And these things go in the case of PHP, they go into a directory called vendor here. You see how it's grayed out? Can you see that in the recording?
Yeah.
So it's grayed out because you don't commit this to Git. There's a lot of reasons for that, but one is that it would just kind of like be a lot of files that you can just easily download anywhere else. And in particular, I have the exact version specified that I want here. So if you run this on your computer, you would get the same ones. So the point is usually people don't commit this. And The one for JavaScript is called node modules. And usually you definitely don't want to commit that because it's enormous. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay, so in an app like this, usually with PHP, and actually for a lot of apps, there's usually a like a public web root directory that has the things that people, when they're browsing the web, can actually get to, right? Whereas the rest of my code is hidden from them, okay? So when you set up your, this is like getting into detail, when you set up your web server, you actually point it to this directory to serve your website. And here's an index.php. So the gentleman who was a student, I think, had an index to HTML. I think I'm right. Again, I'm getting no feedback, so I'm just gonna nod myself here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So an index, a PHP file on a server that is capable of running PHP will execute PHP code in the file. And actually an HTML file is kind of also a PHP file technically. So the way this web framework works is everything starts with this file, and it is the only one that actually executes all the time, no matter what like web page you're on. And I know it seems weird because we had you make like a different HTML file, right? If you're using frameworks like this, you don't actually have to create other files in the web root. Those paths are created automatically by the framework. So there's just like a little bit of code in here that actually bootstraps an awful lot of code in here. Okay. Keep going. Want to see more?
Yep.
Okay. So this actually just comes from, this essentially just comes from Symfony framework. Like I didn't, we added a little bit to here because of some details of our web hosting, but otherwise this is usually just like a really small file. So it kind of starts with this, and then this launches the whole thing off, right? So web frameworks of all kinds in pretty much any language have a concept called a controller, and it is the most interesting way to get started with the web framework. So controllers in this case are in here. Controllers are the code that gets executed when someone makes a web request. Okay, so someone goes to the home page, or they go to some specific thing, or they post a form. Some controller code in here is going to be the thing that receives that request first and decides what to do about it. Okay, so here's a default controller for this one. So in this web framework, I can write this special kind of comment up here that explains which route of the so a route is like which which path on the web app you wanted, right? This code is going to execute. So this is the one for the home page. Okay, so this just means this is the one you get if you don't pick a different page. Okay, and I have a name for it, which is kind of helpful for linking to it in other places. And so what's going on here? So all right, so in this case, I load some stuff from the database here. Okay. And then I pass that information to a template. Okay, so a little bit going on here, but basically when you're using this framework, you have to return a special type of object. In this case, it's called a response object, and this thing is actually doing that. If you go to this render thing, this returns a response object. And so what this is actually saying here is I want to render this web template right now, and I'm going to send it this data. I'm going to call it staff, and here's the data that's going to go in there. What this actually is is this that you're looking at here. It makes this little table here. Okay, so how does that work? Well,
Gotcha.
So if I look at this template, so my IDE lets me press special buttons just to jump right to that file. So that's what I just did. So, oh, look, it's some HTML, sort of, right? So this is using, there's a popular templating language for PHP called Twig, and that's the one that Symfony Framework likes to use. And I got to close my door because bugs are coming in. And so yeah, this is like mostly HTML, except where there's some other control code here that you're seeing here, right? And so these are like programming details about some stuff I want to show or not show. But I want to point out one thing to you here though, and that's this here. So this is, I'm actually loading a different template to render that table of staff. Okay, so if you remember here I passed the data called staff in, right? And this is just some like raw data here, okay, from the database, right? And so I'm passing it to this template, and in here I go. So this is where I'm making the table. So I'm using Bootstrap framework here. That's what these classes are. So that makes the table look kind of cool like this, right? And basically, if you're familiar, those of you who've been learning HTML should pretty much recognize what you're seeing here completely, right? I'm making an HTML table, and then there's like a for loop here. So when I get to the table rows, I actually go into a loop, and I take this data out of that staff thing and print it out into the right places, right? So I'll show you one other controller and give you an idea what that's doing, right? So let's look at this, staffing. So this is like the people that are allowed to like use this app, and you can see there's a table here. So let's look at the controller for that. So in that one, it's I guess the user controller right here. And actually, let's look at a simpler one. Let's look at this job type controller. Yeah. So here we go. Job types. Okay, so I'm talking about this one instead. All right, so in this one, so inside this controller, there's a few routes. So see this one, I'm gonna start with this one. It's called admin job type. This in this framework, this means that all the routes in here start with this part, this path part, and then anything past it is in addition to that. So this is like the home page for this whole area. So basically this means if I go here, that means I'm going to admin job type. So here I am, that's where I am. I can't see the URL because the thing's in the way, but see I'm on admin job type, okay? So that's where I am in the app right now. And so this is just the thing. So this looks similar to the thing you just saw. I'm getting some data from the database, and guess what? I'm making a table, all right? So that's what's going on here, all right? Now there's some special buttons that I'm adding in here to do editing and stuff like that. And those things are gonna link to other routes that are in here, okay? So if you look at, for example, this guy here, so I'm making a table, and you see at the end of the table, so see where it says show and edit right here?
Yeah.
Those correspond to this here.
Gotcha.
Right. So like for example, the show one. So this is I mean worried about this, but this is in this language called Twig. And in this framework, how I link to a specific route and also pass some data into the route. So in this case, I want to show one of the job types, and it needs to know which job type, and that's just this ID thing. So you'll see if I float over here, this is, if you look at the bottom of my screen, this is going to go to job type 19. Okay, so that's just what's going on for each row. It's rendering this thing called this is called an entity in this case. So I print its ID, I print its name, I print its description, and then the buttons to edit it and show it. Say there it is, ID. You get the idea, right? So so if I click on show, I'm going to be going to this route, right? So I click on show. So now that shows just like one of them. So in this controller, all right. Oh, did I go too far? No, I didn't. So in here, there's going to be a one of these routes. There's a new one. Here's the one that shows it. See. So that's what I'm at, where I am now. So see, look at the framework here. This looks a little different now, right? It's got this funny little like language looking thing here. So what that is doing is that's capturing this number 19, right, automatically for me. And when I use this framework, I can automatically get that data here in this function signature. So now I can go in the database and get that one thing, which is just what this is doing here, okay? And then I can just show like the one thing, basically is essentially what this is doing here. I'm also pulling out a delete button for it too, which is a little more detailed.
It's put in a number that doesn't exist, Chris.
Okay, yeah. So like, this, here's one that doesn't exist. The web framework has automatically generated a 404 not found for me. Cool, huh? Why?
I did you don't see the message though? Or
I guess not with this not found exception.
No.
Yeah. If I'm in dev mode, I'll see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but actually I was too lazy to start this app, so you're looking at the live one, which isn't in dev mode. So yeah. And this thing, so another thing I should just sort of mention with the web, something you're going to come to understand, there's this thing called cross-site request forgery. And what that means is, you see this delete button here? If you don't have in your web app protections against cross-site request forgery. While I'm logged in here, or while I'm logged on to any site like Twitter or anything, someone could, when I visit another website, instruct my browser with JavaScript to delete this thing without me doing it. So it's like kind of like a big problem. So when you use web frameworks, you have to use them properly, and you don't just create these things on your own. You usually use the framework, and that's why I actually create a delete form for that button. And when I do that, I don't want to get into all the details. When I do that, it means that this delete button is pretty much only going to work when I actually press it in a browser. All right, just something to be aware of when you start to go through code reviews, that people should start noticing that you might write a cross-site request forgery. So here's the edit route. See, this is when I want a certain one and I want to edit it. Okay. Hope that all makes sense. There are simpler web frameworks than these. There are some that are called micro web frameworks. Laravel has one. And they're like very, very simple. There's Express.js, it's another one. So this is one for JavaScript actually. So this is when you, instead of running JavaScript in your web browser, you download a thing called Node.js, and this is a server-side JavaScript, but you can use it like as server-side code. And with a thing like Express here, you can make a web framework with it. All right, so you might see this looks a little similar to what I showed you. So this is actually an entire application in this mini framework, believe it or not. So you can run this thing and it'll return hello world for this route. But you can tell this looks a little familiar to what I just showed you. So this is like, oh look, it's specifying which route it is, right? It gets some data maybe, and then it has to send some data back. Cool, huh? But this is the entire thing. The other thing I just showed you is like hundreds of lines of code. So you can use this to get started really quickly if you just need to, like what we refer to as like a toy server for a project or something. You just want to like learn how this stuff works.
Yeah.
There's also, like I said, there's one for Laravel micro framework. Laravel has one too, Illumin. This one has kind of eaten the whole market of micro frameworks lately, but extremely similar thing. You can run it on your computer as long as you have PHP installed without installing a lot of stuff. And where's their getting started, like routing. Again, this is going to look very familiar to what I just showed you. Oh, look, here it is again. Get some path, return some data, right? So they're all pretty much the same idea, you know. You notice I glossed over how the whole database actually works and stuff like that. But, yeah.
Thanks.
Literally any questions about this? Like, how does the front end code? So yeah, I should have mentioned that actually. So to get the like JavaScript dependencies and stuff like that. So remember I mentioned the composer file to get the PHP dependencies. We use Yarn. There's a few you can use, but npm is probably the way to go now. But I specify a package JSON for the JavaScript dependencies. Looks similar, right? So these are different JavaScript libraries that I want to have, and this will install the proper ones into node modules. All right, and then we have a way of using them, which I will get into, but essentially they're available on the web. We might also write some simple JavaScript like this, just to make a field work properly. This one is a lot more involved. JavaScript. Yeah. Some CSS. Yeah, we'll oftentimes add just a tiny bit of CSS.
Yeah, I think.
But
Yeah,
that's good. Actually, sorry, Peter. I just want to mention. So
Yeah.
the new people that just saw that app, it looks okay, right? I hope, right? It looks basic, but okay and everything. Look how much did I just show you how much CSS we actually wrote? Okay. Okay. I'll stop now.
Yeah, well, I thought it was a good point, Chris. You made it like a lot of these micro frameworks where you can just right, and that's I think with Symfony you could probably do something almost like that, right? If you just had a default controller and maybe a default template.
With what?
With Symfony, you could do something pretty small, right?
Oh, yeah,
Tailwind.
yeah. And actually, it used to be you had to install with framework like that. You had to install a whole bunch of stuff you didn't necessarily want to do anything. Now you can install exactly what you need. Just, oh, I just want to do this one thing, and their tutorials walks down that path. It's like, oh, you want to do routing, install this thing. Want to do this, so you only put in what you need. But yes, you can start with like a really lean setup.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of the point I was making of you could grab one of these things and essentially run a PHP or Node app like that, and it you could generate essentially a website without necessarily writing any HTML or CSS. So or very little, or writing a template. It kind of auto generates like a repeating element, like a table or a list of things or something. So Ian is saying something about telemetry. Do you want to share this, Ian?
Actually, I just learned something. So I remarked in the chat that VS Code was great because it's free, but that Microsoft collected user data. And Sean told me there was an option to turn off that user data collection, and he's right. So
Okay.
that is very, very cool. I'm doing that right now.
Okay, well, let me show, maybe or maybe not, this is gonna satisfy people. I don't like Sean, I don't use a Git client other than the command line tool. I don't know if other people here are using clients or the command line tool, but I strongly recommend doing a Git tutorial of some kind with some kind of either the command line tool or any kind of Git client. There are many options, many of them are free. Because without version control, like, your life is very miserable. And I think, as Chris said, learn Git basically. If you want to have both save your sanity and have credibility. And here, let me share an example of like forking and cloning. Let's see if this works. So I will just take this as an example of a repository. So this repository is something actually I work on as a side project with Code for Philly, which is a Code for America brigade.
Wait,
So,
Peter, do you want to do something where someone could accept the pull request?
Sure. Do you want to make a pull request and show forking and making pull request?
Can you accept the pull request there?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to show it.
I mean, I can accept my own pull request. I'm not sure what I would do, but okay.
We'll
make it.
Oh, you can.
Yeah, I was about to ask something about PRs.
Sure.
Like, if you could show like just do a normal PR, everything is okay, and then you display like when you get a conflict when you try to merge your PR, how you solve it.
All right. Oh, well, those are kind of hard.
Conflict. Well, you have to rebase on the other thing. That's okay. An interesting question.
Well, Peter, I'm putting it. If you want to fork one of mine, and then we can go through the process.
Sure. What's one of yours?
I just picked one.
Where did you put it?
In the chat. I don't even think
it to me since I'm sharing screen.
Oh, okay. This code probably doesn't work anymore, but you could just make any kind of change.
Okay.
Right, and just we'll just get there. There you go.
Okay.
This is something we used to use, but it is itself a fork.
A fork of a fork. Okay.
Yeah.
So sure. Okay. So this, I don't know what this is, but it's way behind the whatever it was forked from. But so this is Chris's fork, and I can fork Chris's fork, which is how it goes.
Which is called I don't know what.
Yeah, I don't know either. Now this is a new option. Only copy the 2x branch. Interesting. That actually makes sense, I guess. So I don't actually need all the branches with all the history. Great. So I created a fork. So this is now my personal copy of Chris's repository, right? And I can go here, and I normally use SSH But you could use, I don't know what GitHub CLI, they have a CLI tool. If you don't have SSH
I don't know what
set
that
up,
means.
I guess they have their own command line version. You can use HTTPS, so just with your GitHub password, you could do this also, but I use SSH, so like
So he's going to show you some Git now.
yeah, I'll show you a little Git. Hopefully, yeah, I'm trying to make this a little
You can
bigger.
Command plus to make the text bigger.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
There you go.
So I don't know what, I have a couple keys here. At least one of them is in GitHub. So and so I'm in a Meetup directory just for test, and I'm gonna copy this URL, Git URL, and make a copy of it, right? And so now I have, this is on my local computer. And I could go in, so this is Visual Code Studio. People were talking about, and I don't really use it much, but just so you see it. Oh yes, and now I'm having this. So there we go. Hide the floating meeting controls so I can actually see anything. And okay, so I'm gonna open this folder up. Okay, so this is a bunch of PHP code. We mentioned Composer at the beginning. This has Composer dependencies. I don't know. What should I change, Chris? That's
The
trivial.
README.
Change README. Sure, that doesn't hurt anything.
So Peter found like a, whatever, a typo or something in here.
Yeah. Stall with Composer. Okay, well, let's just say, I would say, or we should really tell them, yeah, or do this. Right.
Sure. Absolutely sure.
Right. So basically, they're saying manually add this to your JSON, which is silly, or you could just use Composer to do it, right? And okay, so that's like,
That's just the README. He just updated
that's
the
just
instructions.
README. And now,
So now
okay,
he's typing git diff. Yeah, there we go.
so here's git diff, and I think Kathy made me change the colors so they weren't red and green for in case anyone was colorblind. But you can see Git tells me that I changed the README. I added these lines. And now I'm going to do fix README.
So you just created and checked out a branch called fix README.
Right. So now I'm my own branch, and I can people
You might
joining
want to
late.
stage
Okay.
it first.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's typing git add.
blithely use the -A flag, Chris.
Actually, Peter, can you type git status first?
Sure.
Before you do that. So git status tells you a lot. So right now, you can see it's like changes not staged for commit. So what he's going to do first is add the README into what's called the git staging area by typing git add, and it tells you what to do at the bottom there. It's literally saying Peter to type git add. Now if he types a git status, look, now it says the README is going to be committed.
Right. So now I can git commit -m fix darn README. Right. Great. And
All right, you committed it
push.
now.
I committed it. So I made that change, but this is to my branch. So here's my branch. It has that commit. That commit has the one change, and it has changes that are not in the version that is on GitHub, which is this origin.
Git doesn't phone home unless you tell it to. That's
Right. So Git does not automatically synchronize everything. So Git is great because you can have a copy of all the code on your laptop, and you can be on the airplane or in a submarine, whatever. You can make all the changes you want. You can commit all the changes you want, and whenever you have an internet connection again, you can push them to share them with the world. And you can make multiple branches. You can make multiple different sets of changes. It's great. You should basically use it for everything. And so I want to synchronize this. And so the command to synchronize on the command line is git push. And Git tells me I'm, a dummy, but it very helpfully tells me that this is the command I need to actually type, which is that while I push it, I need to tell Git essentially where I'm pushing it to. And this flag basically says Git should remember that I pushed it to this place.
So he's pushing it to a remote branch at GitHub that has the same name as this branch here.
Yeah,
which is advisable. It's a good idea. And then GitHub provides you a nice link there.
Right, and then GitHub helpfully tells me how to make a pull request for that branch without like me having to go and really think hard about it.
Yeah. They also
So
do that
great.
yellow thing at the top.
All right, there we go. So fix it on README. Right, so this is like the process of a pull request. For people who haven't seen this on GitHub. Oh, Travis. Okay, I didn't even thought they were making you use GitHub Actions now or something else.
No, I mean, Travis still works.
Travis still works, okay. So GitHub will also show me essentially the same thing. The line's changed. The list of commits, right? So if I had made more than one commit and pushed them, it would show. And there's no conversation here. Like Chris hasn't come back and said, this is great, or this is terrible. Yeah, do you want to show accepting it, Chris, or
Yeah,
sure. Conflict just for fun?
Oh, so yeah, we don't have enough time tonight to talk about how to fix a Git conflict. There's almost like no magic. Usually you just have to fix the problem. Right. I mean, so usually Git will say these files are in conflict and it puts special markers in the file, and you have to just like go in and figure out what you want it to be actually doing.
Yeah.
Using VS Code and the Git extensions does help that, because it will like let you merge all the things, or like accept theirs, accept yours, like without you knowing those commands. So if you do use VS Code, having like
I don't know
Git lens and things like that installed is super helpful.
I'm guessing I don't have that installed.
So if I accept that merge request, and press it, the pull request, then it will become part, that'll join the main branch of my app, basically.
Yeah. So do you want to yeah. Do you want to demonstrate that?
It didn't pass test.
Oh. Oops. Okay. My README failed. Okay. Can't merge it.
Yeah, like good luck getting anyone to merge something that fails tests. So that's also a good point. Like whether you work at a company or work on open source, nobody wants to merge something where they see that.
Right. But you should also verify that their main branch is passing its tests. So that's also,
it's probably failing because they don't have a Travis account, or it's not set up and it's supposed to be, or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
Most likely not set up. So oh, interesting, actually. Very interesting. No, it actually failed.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's the basics there. I mean, we could talk about doing advanced stuff again next time, maybe, or something. But,
yeah.
That's not exactly web, though, really.
Yeah, but oh, and then I could mention, so I was talking about how GitHub is useful for presenting a static website, right? So this project is actually hosted. The live website is hosted on GitHub, and it has it has that GH branches or GH pages branch. So this branch, what you see is actually not a lot of stuff. It's in like an HTML index page and a few other things. That's the website, and that the other code like builds this essentially. And if I go to this URL, the code here is actually coming basically just from that branch on GitHub. Which
And
is
GitHub hosts it for free.
And it's hosting
That's
it for
the other
free. So like the organization has a custom domain here, but you can have, oh, I think I have some, which I haven't looked at in a long time. Is there a listing of your GitHub pages? Yeah, so this, feeling dumb here, Chris, but I think if I go to like, what, VLAN, that, yeah, there we go. Right, so that code repository is basically a web HTML and JavaScript based presentation. As you see, it's still out of date. But again, a great learning tool if you want to host a website somewhere and it's just HTML and JavaScript. You can just basically go in your Git repository, push your stuff here, configure it to have to publish to GitHub pages, and then you have a public website that you can share and show. So I think that kind of connected the dots on that, unless if someone has questions about what I'm showing right now, I'll answer them. Otherwise, I'll stop and we'll see if anyone else has questions before we wrap up. Okay, nope. Okay, we have a bunch of stuff in the chat too. So someone, Miriam, was asking in the chat about getting development experience. So one of the ways to get a development experience, which Chris sort of alluded to, is contributing to an open source project. And you can contribute to a project from an organization like, I don't know where you're based. If you're based in New Jersey or Philadelphia area, like as I said, Code for Philly is a Code for America Brigade, and they do open source projects that help like support civic good things. So basically anyone who wants to can like sign up for that and help, and essentially join in, come to a hackathon. Similarly, a bunch of us work on like Drupal stuff, so that requires typically more like PHP experience, but there's definitely JavaScript, CSS, or even documentation type stuff if you're interested in that project. They're really like gazillion open source projects, and that's how essentially I got a job doing this stuff. Was I started contributing to those on the side, and then that lets you build up kind of a network of people who have seen your competency, and maybe one of them will offer you a job, or know someone who's looking to hire. Not look, there's no guarantees, but it's a great way to both get experience and make connections. So I would definitely recommend that as an avenue to explore.
Or you could just contact any charity, any not-for-profit. Almost everybody has a website. Some of them even have money to spend too.
Yeah.
It worked.
I think the problem with someone who's really new and volunteering for a charity is often like they won't have anyone there to give you any guidance or mentorship. Like if they do, that's like that would be a great situation. But if they have zero guidance, then they're like, hey, fix our website. You know, or you need to find some other group, you know, in a co-working space or in a boot camp, you know, alumni collaboration or something where people could kind of, you know, lend you a hand when you hit a wall. I think another big lesson is don't go it alone.
That's a good point.
So if you know, certainly like meetups like this exist, but this is, we only do this once a month and we can only kind of help with so many questions. And sometimes we have, more formal presentations that take up time. So, but another avenue to look at is Slack. Like we have a Slack channel in the Drupal Slack. There are lots of other organizations that have Slacks, and you can often find help in those kind of places in real time, even if people aren't in the same place as you. So again, don't go it alone. And look again, I think contributing in some way to an open source or civic project or a charity project, all great ways to make connections and possibly make a little money. As Ian said, if you as you get started, maybe someone will pay you a little bit to do this kind of work, even if it's not much, or even if you feel like you're still beginning, you may still be far in advance of anyone at the organization just because you actually know some HTML and CSS and JavaScript, which most people have no idea where to start.
I just want to add a few things. So Peter mentioned don't go it alone. That's really important because I spent years like doing things on my own, and I think before I found this group, I didn't have high standards, and so that really helped. And also be careful about volunteering because it's like a bottomless pit. They have no idea what you're doing, and you might have a sense technically, and they might ask for too much. So I told my son when he volunteered to do a website in college, I said, just tell them, be very clear that you're going to quit at the end of the year, and that this is a limited thing. So 2 words of advice.
Yeah, so there's a question about connecting after this. I would say, the best place to actually connect with us is in the Slack that Chris just posted. So a lot of us are online there all the time, and and there's lots of other Slack channels. But if you're joining this meetup and you've met us here, we certainly you can ping us there and ask a question, or just ask a question in the channel, and someone will probably jump in when they can and give you a pointer. And were there any other questions that people had that are really burning that we didn't get to? So if not, thanks everyone for coming. This was fun, and hope it was educational for people that are especially coming off boot camps. And we would love for you to just join the Slack and connect, come back next month, have some more questions, and maybe listen to our presentation. What's that?
I got a question.
Sure.
Is it okay if you guys share the video with me so that I can have it in kind of graph everything?
Sure. Well, that's a little more. Sean's usually the one to post them. At some point, was this? Yeah, this was still recording. These videos are uploaded monthly to our YouTube channel.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, this will be available, and past ones. Also, there are a ton of videos from conferences, web development conferences, things like that. So if you're interested in a particular topic, there's really almost an endless amount of material available for free these days, or for very low cost. So the link is not working. Was that the join Slack link is not working? Or which link?
I think so. Yeah, sometimes it breaks or something. I've heard people complain about that. It works for me.
What
Oh,
is
you
the
need to log in or create an account. Is that?
Just to get in the Slack channel. That's annoying.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, it's free, you know.
What is the YouTube channel?
The YouTube channel is, is that Drupal Camp NJ? Let me just see, Sean, I think Sean had go. Let's see, yeah. So the top level. So the thing that has both the meetup recording as well as session recordings here, I'll put in the chat it's the Drupal Camp NJ channel. But you'll see under there, there's basically a playlist that is recordings from meetups. And I don't know. No, so it's as recent as March, Sean has it uploaded, 2022. So he may be a couple months behind on uploading these, but, or maybe they're out of order. Anyway,
I got a
we'll be
question.
there. What's that?
I got a question too. I don't know. I didn't know if you were finished or not. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Sure, go ahead. So yeah, anyway, it should be there on the YouTube channel. Yeah, if you have a question, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted your take on your on trying to select a developer to work on e-com sites, and whether how would you any tips or suggestions of what to look for, and or whether there are some things to be weary of if you're going to give a developer access to your web page to execute a e-com site.
Well, I'd be wary of anyone who calls themselves a senior developer if they've graduated from a boot camp, you know, like a year ago. First off, which I have seen. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of it is asking them what their experience is. It sounds like you don't have necessarily coding experience yourself.
Correct. More of a front end.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to get I mean, I know some developing stuff, HTML and CSS, but
Okay.
nothing
Well,
in depth. But I'm working on.
Sure, but if you know something, I mean, that's a good start. At least they won't be able to completely bullshit you. So that's but yeah, I think part of the question is like how you want to implement this. Like if you want it as a site built from scratch, or you're just looking for you know, like essentially a list of products and check out with PayPal or something.
Right, something like that.
So you know, I think a little bit about like what your approach is. And, you know, I think, you know, a good place to start is asking them, have you done something like this before? And if so, can you show me, is it, you know, public on the web? Show it to me. Can you, you know, is there someone there who can give you a reference? I think those are pretty basic, and you know, you want someone with some familiarity with what you're doing. And so they're not kind of charging you a lot just to like learn something completely from scratch. So
there's not a concern with trying to give them some. I guess you would have to give them access to your code for the page.
Yeah.
If they're concerned of you know, I mean, I guess any concern of whether or not the you know you working with someone legit, or how to limit the access to certain money.
I mean, there's different, so there's different ways to do that. Like you know, if you're, for example, if you have a private GitHub repository, right, you could set it up so they can push code only to a certain branch, or let's say they can't merge code to the branch that deploys the live site. And so you would have a chance to kind of look at the work in some way, at least before it goes live. I mean, that's kind of a pretty basic strategy, but that might be enough for you.
Okay.
Yeah, and asking people for, some kind of portfolio, asking for references. I mean, figuring out at least where they are and having like a real world contact info for them is probably, all those things kind of help avoid being scammed.
Okay.
So sorry, that wasn't like a brilliant answer, but hopefully that was at least, as I said, I think the biggest thing is to like understand what you want and make sure you're going to get someone who is kind of in alignment with to give you what you want, as opposed to giving you what they think that they could do, if you understand
Right.
the difference. So, all right. Well, we're a little after 9. So let's wrap up, and yeah, we will be back next month. As Sean said, the intro, there's a bunch of both virtual and live events coming up. And it is possible at some point that we'll move this meetup back to being live in person in New Jersey. Still TBD, but we're very happy that all of you could join us from wherever you are. And yeah, join the Slack, and please ping us there if you have questions. And do I need to stop the recording, Sean?
Yeah, thank you guys for everything you guys showed me today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you for everything. Have a good one too.
Yep, have a good one.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.